May I ask one
Yes.
more quick one? On, I think it was last week's weekly CD, you actually said timing is none of your business. And
How rude of us.
Pardon me, I was in my head.
Timing is none of your business in the sense that if you can take timing out of the equation and just understand that there is a universal timing, here's what we mean. Alignment is what is everything. And when where you are is a perfect match to what you desire, it's happening now. And so if you're measuring how much time that takes, you're missing the point. If you're measuring how good you can feel right now, now you're on the point. So there are those who have desires that have been being held for them in vibrational escrow for a very long time, and they will die with them being unfulfilled, still being held for them in vibrational escrow, because they're so involved with noticing where they are that they are keeping a vibration active that's very far apart from the vibration of their desire. So timing is controlled by the vibrational alignment. So how long it will take you to achieve anything has nothing to do with anything, not one thing outside of you. It only has to do with how much time it takes you to find a way to release the resistance. And you can tell you're releasing resistance by finding thoughts that feel better. Do you have something that do we have time for this?
I think the question I had around that was you have answered. Essentially, my thought about it was that timing is an automatic preference too, and that it's in vibrational escrow, and it needs to be allowed. Timing just needs to be allowed like everything else.
Well, you see, when you're saying things like that, you really are making peace with things. You're saying all things in good time, and when it feels like the next logical step, it will unfold. But just understand that if there is something that you want, and you really want it, and it hasn't happened yet, and you are more often noticing that it hasn't happened and feeling uncomfortable that it hasn't happened than you are looking forward to it happening, then you can hold yourself for a long period of time out of vibrational alignment. As we're moving forward here today with people who have things that they want and have wanted for a while that aren't coming, we'll demonstrate how to find softer and softer, better feeling ways of looking at it. And even if you are listening in, you may very well feel your own resistance beginning to dissipate as you begin to move up the emotional scale. Because this gathering is about closing that gap. And closing that gap is what equals the timing. But we don't want you to be thinking about closing that gap in terms of time. We want you to think about closing that gap in terms of, oh, this feels better and this feels better. Because it's what we were getting at earlier today. There is always going to be something more that you want that is unfulfilled. And so you've just got to get used to that. You've just got to say, I'm an eternal being on the leading edge of thought, and I'm going to keep hatching new ideas. There's always going to be something I want that is not yet manifested. And that's a good thing, not a bad thing. And when you get into that place of knowing that it's not a question of whether it will come or not, it's not if it will happen, it must happen. It is law that it happen when you become in vibrational alignment with it. The question is, when will it happen? That's why we're talking about time. When will it happen? And we say, well, the when is completely up to you. How long is it going to take you to feel good about where you are in relationship to what you want? Make peace with where you are. Find a way of softening your discord or discomfort. And when that discord and discomfort goes away, the resistance goes away. And when the resistance goes away, you've only got one signal going. And when you've got one signal going, you're going to lock right on, you see. And you can feel it when you start approaching that brink. You begin to feel the current coming together. You begin to feel the energy moving. If you are in the range of enthusiasm, you begin to feel more passionate. You begin to feel, Esther will say, I can feel that we're right on the brink of something. I can feel it by the way the energy is moving. Or she'll say, I can feel that there's something that I want out there and I'm nowhere near it. I can feel the discord in that. You are so aware of the vibration within your being that it is just as effective as having your hands in that clay. In other words, it feels just that much in your control. You get so you can just move a thought here and move a thought here and move a thought here, and oh, that feels a little better, and that feels a little better than that, and oh, that doesn't feel so good. You can actually chart where you are on the emotional scale. So if you are in despair and you find an angry thought, isn't that angry thought an improvement? Wouldn't you rather be angry any time than fearful or depressed? And so as you reach for the thought that feels better, that release of resistance is indicated to you by that feeling of relief. And so there is relief. Moving into anger, what a breath of fresh air anger can be from fear or despair. And frustration, oh, there's even more relief. Moving into hopefulness, there's even more relief. Moving into believing, there's even more relief. And what we know is that there is no end to the possibility of relief. Even from the non-physical realm, we can find even more allowing thoughts, you see. And so when you realize that you have the ability to continue to release resistance, and that that's what the work is, it has always been the work of the mind. The manifestations come to reflect what the work you are doing with your mind is, but it has always been the work of the mind. But we don't want you to think too hard. It's why for a while we called this gathering the science of deliberate creation. And people got so worried about it. They worried about their thoughts. They tried to suck them back. Cancel, cancel, they would say. They were afraid that they were thinking a thought that the universe would get hold of and then manifest. And so we began calling this the art of allowing, because it puts it more in the place where you can recognize by the way you feel whether you are allowing yourself vibrational alignment or not. Very good. You'll hear much more as we are moving forward.
Okay. Thank you.
Good time for a segment of refreshment. We are complete.
How can I help myself to get to more of the receptive mode? Even though I think it, I know it, I feel it.
Isn't the first thing knowing whether you're there or not?
Yeah.
We talked about this already too, but we really want to amplify it here. It's a wonderful, wonderful question. How can I more deliberately and effectively get into the receptive mode? Here's a very powerful answer. Sometimes you can't, so just give it a break. Sometimes something's happened and you just feel negative emotion, and the harder you try, the worse it gets. The harder you try to solve a problem, the bigger the problem gets. So understanding how you feel is an important component of this. But what we've noticed as we've visited with so many of you since the beginning of your existence is this. It always gets better if you'll just give it a minute. So when you decide to stop the struggle and stop trying so hard to prove your worthiness and stop trying so hard to get it right and start trusting that it's on its way to being the way you want it to be, if you could just settle down a little bit and allow it to be. It's the trying too hard that is tripping you up. And most of that is because you care too much about how you appear to the others around you. You care more about what others think about how you're doing than you do about how you feel in the moment. And so when you let your relationship between your inner being and you be the thing that matters the most, then it's just easier and easier. The reason that we teach meditation, and this is really for you, this statement, it's easier to teach almost everyone to have no thought than to clean up a negative thought. Because you're invested in the negative thought. Law of attraction already brought you a lot of ammunition. Law of attraction has already shored up your negative belief that's working against you, you see. And so if you can just quiet your mind, your vibration will rise, and then you can come at it again. So if you feel like you're in a struggle, take a nap. If you feel like you're in a struggle, take a walk. Do something to break the cycle of attraction if you can. And meditation is the most powerful tool that we know of for that. You're doing extremely well. You're consciously aware of how things are unfolding. We know that you're in a vibrational place where you're consciously aware of how you feel and witnessing what's coming. But you are like so many others. You are doing more of your taking score when you're not where you want to be than when you are where you want to be. And so we just want to make this strong statement to you. In every waking moment, you are either under the influence of your inner being, which means you feel great. Some version of great. You feel frisky or lighthearted or silly or clear-minded or interested in something.
It feels really good to be tuned into your inner being. And there are lots of emotions that indicate it, but they all feel really good. When you're under the influence of your inner being, that's how you always feel. Or you could be under the influence of something else. And so if you'll just stop and ask yourself when a strong emotion is within you, especially if it's a strong negative emotion, what influence am I under? And you acknowledge, oh, wait a minute. Don't beat up on yourself because it's just fine. Just acknowledge that when you're under the influence of something other than your inner being, you don't feel so good. And these are the most powerful words that we will ever speak to anyone. These are the words that we want you to take away from this gathering if you feel like it. And always understand that this is the essence of everything that we teach here. Your singular work is to calibrate yourself to the frequency of your source. That's your singular work. Calibrate yourself to the frequency of your source. Is there another way of saying that, Abraham? Yeah. Your singular work is to get happy. Your singular work is to feel good, because all the other stuff, you've done it without even needing to know that you were doing it. You were born into contrast. Contrast gave you data and information. You filled your vortex full of all kinds of things that you want. Step 1 and step 2 have already happened. Your singular work is to calibrate yourself to the frequency of your source, which means your singular work is to feel as good as you can feel whenever you're focused upon it. But the question that you're asking is, but when I don't feel good, how do I go about that calibration? And we say, that's really what you've got to figure out how to do, because when you know you're out of sorts and you're determined that you're going to get lined up, usually you make it worse because you're trying too hard. And why? Because you're aware that you're not where you want to be and trying to push where you don't want to be away from you. Can you feel it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just take it easier. Be nicer to yourself. Do more things that are fun. Get out ahead of it. Meditate every morning. Segment in 10 before you walk into a segment. Acknowledge the positive aspects of your life. Count your blessings. Make lists of positive aspects. Look for reasons to feel good. And if you start early enough in the day before reasons that you don't feel good have shown themselves to you, then you're off on the right foot, so to speak. And then just stay after that until before you know it, you're just feeling good mostly. Not always, not ever always. You're human, here to sift and sort and launch new rockets of desire. Just stop beating up on yourself when you're in step 1. Let it be a step 5 moment. Oh, contrast. One day, Esther was dusting an etagere with all the beautiful things that she and Jerry had collected from all around the world, and the shelf came off. She didn't even understand how the thing was constructed, and the top shelf banged into the second and the third, and everything on the shelf was broken. Jerry's in another room, and he can hear it, and he says, stand still, because he knows Esther has no shoes on. So she stands, and there are shards of glass all over, some of them sticking in the floor, broken everything from the shelf. And Jerry said, oh, good, something to buy. That's all gone. Now what? Now we need stuff to fill that shelf back up. And boy, isn't that a fun thing to do, you see. And so it doesn't matter where you are. The universe is rich with all kinds of things to satisfy and surprise and delight you. Yes?
Yes.
This is a really good time for a segment of refreshment.
Thank you.